All right, so this is a pretty informal talk. Y'all are more than welcome to interrupt me at any point. Again, I'll try and do my best to, hear the questions, but I may need a little help, so we'll just see how it goes. That's the end. I gotta get to the beginning. So the point of my talk tonight is just to give y'all an idea of what we're doing at Cal Poly Pomona, teaching some of my research projects, a lot of the student projects. Despite the pandemic, we've been doing a lot. We've been trying to do the most that we can. We pride ourselves on learn by doing approach, and that's been incredibly difficult the past 18 months. One of the updates that y'all may have noticed or heard about is that I have been promoted. I now have tenure, and I guess I'll be here forever now. So that's super exciting for me. My family in North Carolina, I think, is a little saddened that I might, forever be a Southern Californian. But I'm happy to be here and to settle in and put my roots down and raise my family. So. All right, so what's going on at Cal Poly Pomona? We're back. This is my lab class that Ava was in earlier today, doing an irrigation audit in a lettuce field on campus. So we're having in-person classes again. We're not totally back. This semester, about 50% of our classes are in person. Our department specifically kind of strategized and thought, we want to have the majority of our labs in person so that we can have those hands-on experiences. And then most of our lectures are still online. The plan is that we will have everything back to in person next semester. You can tell I've got some hesitation. We'll see. I mean, that's what we're planning for, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. So I thought I'd give y'all just a couple quick updates, not like big, long research talks, just about some of the work that my graduate students and I have been working on. The past year, I've been the primary advisor for 3 graduate students. One of these projects just completely went on hold. The other 2, we completely redid what they were going to do, of course, due to the pandemic. And we kind of made brand new projects on the fly, with mixed success. I mean, they've gone great, but, so let me just tell you about 2 of these. So this is my graduate student that just graduated, Brianna Garcia. She's now working for the USDA in Bakersfield. Her project was on hedgerows, and she was looking at almond orchards in the Central Valley. And just real quick, hedgerows are perennial woody vegetation that you plant typically on the edges of your crop fields to provide a number of benefits, whether it's to retain soil. Here, it was specifically to attract beneficial insects. In almond orchards, of course, honeybees are incredibly crucial, right? They're what make almond production happen. Honeybees, though, are just one of thousands of bees that are out there. And of course, the honeybees are typically trucked in, right? They're brought in from out of state, or at least, they're trucked in hundreds of miles away. There's a lot of native bees that, live all year long throughout California. They're not going to replace honeybees. They can't pollinate crops like almonds as well, but they can help. There's been a lot of research showing that they can help. And as sort of the situation with honeybees, gets more tenuous and, they're dealing with varroa mites, et cetera, all sorts of stressors. there's been a growing interest in what can we do to support native bees on our farms. So there's a hope that by putting in some perennial, maybe native plants through this hedgerow, we can increase native bees. So my student drove all over Green Earth. You can see Fresno on the top and Bakersfield at the bottom of this map. She had 6 sites, throughout Kern and Fresno County. She had these, if you see here, she had these blue and yellow bowls, which attract bees and other insects. She put them up on a stand so they'd be about the same height as the flower blossoms and the almonds. She put those out for 24 hours at different intervals throughout these almond orchards. She went through many trials and tribulations trying to do this project in her little Camry. She put a lot of hard work into this, on top of it being during the middle of the pandemic. The results were really interesting. The hedgerows didn't seem to make any impact at all. In fact, the one thing that statistically made the most impact was where these sites. You can see on this graph here that like a lot of the sites didn't really have any wild bees. There was this one site though that had like a lot. And so we went back and we're like, what's going on with this site? And it turns out this is the field, and it's the one that's closest to sort of this native wild vegetation, right? All the other sites were in a landscape dominated by agriculture. And so, it got us thinking about how can we maybe bring some of the sort of native, natural, wild ecosystems, into our farms, and how can we do that, safely, and how can we do that so that it, benefits farmers. So, this project opened up a lot of interesting questions, and now the student, is working through the USDA and kind of going to be working with farmers to try and tackle some of these broader issues. So that was one research project. The other was my student Pandora Mondragon. We're looking at cover crops, primarily in small scale or urban scale farms. Her original project kind of got thrown out the window because of the pandemic. Real quick, with cover crops, what we're talking about is something that typically an annual that you grow mostly to benefit the soil, right? You're not going to harvest it, you're not going to sell it, but you have to buy the seeds, you have to tend to it, maybe you even have to irrigate it, and then you kill it and typically, plow it under or let it rot on the surface. And that's kind of a hard sell for farmers, right? Because they're having to put in a lot of labor and costs, and they don't get an immediate benefit from it, right? Long term, it can benefit their soil and it can maybe improve their yields, but that's down the road. So a number of researchers have been starting to ask, well, maybe what if we harvest something from the cover crop? Can we still get the same long-term benefits from this cover crop if we harvest some of it and sell it, and maybe that'll be an easier sell. It'll be something that we can convince farmers to adopt. The original plan was a fava bean cover crop, a legume, followed by sweet corn, and mostly because I have experience in those crops. We had to throw that plan out the window. So the original plan was a cool season cover crop followed by a warm season cash crop. Then the new plan was cowpea as a cover crop followed by celery. So a warm season cover crop followed by a cool season cash crop. I thought it was a brilliant idea. Turns out it was not a great idea because I didn't do enough background research to learn that aphids just absolutely love cowpea. And last summer, especially when it was 100 and whatever, the aphids just went crazy. And the other thing I learned, which is kind of sad, I don't think I can grow celery. We had a failed crop, and then I tried to grow it again, and we got these little measly celery. So I don't know, I guess I need to go back to school. I thought, what's so hard about growing celery? So, we have enough data, and the graduate students, research, we have a lot to talk about, but it was a challenging project. So that'll wrap up in the next probably 6 months. Pandora needs to, write her thesis. So moving on to some student projects. This is what we spend a lot of our time on, kind of extracurricular opportunities. We've really leaned on these heavily this past year because, we haven't been able to have our classes in person, but we have been able to have students on campus through some of these projects. So some of y'all know about the Microfarm. This is the culinary garden that's, up on the hill next to the fine dining restaurant on campus. It's a student-run urban scale farm. It's about half an acre. We produce vegetables and herbs and fruit, for campus dining when campus dining is open. It's our primary sort of outdoor urban ag classroom, right? It's not, our 130-acre farm. It's our half-acre farm. We have, been able to have students out there. This is one of the student managers, Pilar, during the past year. Because campus dining has been closed, we've gotten a chance to collaborate with a local restaurant, a farm-to-table restaurant that's actually owned and operated by a chef that was a student of mine a couple years ago. So that's been a really great opportunity. The students have gotten to learn a lot just about sort of the business side of things, working on kind of the farm and collaborating with that restaurant. We have a lot of fruit trees on the Microfarm. This year, we seem to be having a bumper crop of white Sapotes. I could actually use a little bit of advice on, the best way to harvest these. In the past, we've just kind of gotten, handfuls. So like, we let them kind of fall from the tree and we eat them. Like, we haven't really thought too much about it. But now that we're potentially, going to bring these to a restaurant, we're trying to kind of, figure out how much of this we should allow to ripen on the tree versus how much we should, try and pick early. So that's one of the projects we're working on now. We've got a lot of persimmons coming in right now, of course, both Fuyu and Hachiya. They're doing well. We have lots of kind of smatterings of fruit throughout this little half-acre urban scale farm. There's a number of dragon fruit that are producing. Unfortunately, we don't know what the cultivars are. I'm not sure if like in the past they were sort of grafted. They weren't labeled. A lot of them are red flesh varieties. They're really good. So we're trying to kind of spend a little bit more time on them just to sort of get a better idea of what they are and, when they're producing. Our pomegranates have been really interesting because in the past few years on this microfarm, we've had really good yields, but we've had a lot of blackheart. This has been a real problem, because when we bring these to like campus dining or to restaurants, typically like they look fine on the outside, right? And you don't know that they've got this problem, like really bad problem, until you open them up. And so that's really embarrassing, if we're bringing these to like a restaurant or campus dining and they have to call us up and they say like, 30% of what you brought us is no good. So we've been, trying to kind of figure out how to address this. And so, the microfarm is essentially organically managed. It's not certified organic, but for a number of reasons, we try to use organic methods. This is a disease that really starts when the pomegranate is flowering. And we were, thinking like, do we just spray the tree like over and over again when it's flowering with something like neem oil? We decided against that just because there was no guarantee that would actually be effective, and like we don't really if we we don't really encourage any kind of spraying up there just because it's, primarily student operated. What we really decided to focus on was just sanitation. And so a lot of those pomegranate trees had gotten really overgrown. There are a lot of branches, kind of at ground level or touching the ground. There's a lot of old debris and maybe prunings and stuff that had kind of been left behind. And so we, raped the ground around the pomegranates, removed all of that debris. We put fresh wood chips down. We really heavily pruned it this past winter, kind of knowing that it would impact fruit production this year, but sort of hoping that we could kind of stop that disease cycle. So we'll see. Our fruit production is really, really way down this year. We knew that that's kind of the risk we were taking, but we haven't seen much disease yet. So, we're hoping that next year we'll get good fruit production again, and that hopefully the disease will be less. So we'll see. Moving on to some other projects we're working on. This is one that I'm particularly proud of and very passionate about. This is a project, you see a photo here of the Lyle Center, which is the Center for Regenerative Studies, Sustainability on campus. They have a small food production component, the Poly Pantry, which I'll explain in a minute, and then the associated student body, and then of course us at the Huntley College of Agriculture. The way this got started was there was some interviews and research done in the past 5 years, and what was discovered was that our students are in a pretty intense place. Throughout the Cal State University system, they found that 40% of students don't have enough food to eat. I know personally, I've tried to help students in this situation before. I've had a number of students that, are living in their cars, etc. So basic needs is something that we really need to address. And one thing that we've never really done is, married the fact that we produce a lot of food on campus through our farming operations, and the fact we've got a lot of hungry students on campus. So we now have a food pantry on campus, and we are starting to produce fresh fruits and vegetables for that food pantry. And so there's now specific students, primarily based at the Lyle Center, that are growing fresh fruits and vegetables for the Poly Pantry, our food pantry for students. And then starting this fall, actually this Saturday will be one of our inaugural events. We're having Cal Poly Pomona student volunteers come out just to kind of, have everybody get involved and everybody kind of create a culture of, caring and looking out for each other to grow and harvest fruits and vegetables for the pantry. So I'm the faculty lead on this. And again, it's a big collaboration. And we're hoping, that as we build this program, we can start having the general public come out to help us with this as well. So, if you're interested, I can keep you updated. It'll probably be next year just due to the pandemic, et cetera, but it may not, things change pretty quickly. So a couple other quick updates about some student projects. We have what we call an urban agriculture greenhouse, and inside there's a relatively large, about 400 square foot aquaponic system. So real quickly, for those that are not familiar, this is a hydroponic growing system where the fertilizer is produced by fish. We have our fish, they finally came in. We now have 300 little baby tilapias. And so their fish waste will be used as fertilizer for the plants, and then the plants filter that water before it goes back to the fish. It's a closed loop system. We're starting off with some really basic crops and some basic fish. So we've got tilapia, and we're growing lettuce and herbs, but we're really curious about doing something different as well. We've even talked about maybe growing coffee. I mean, that might be a little crazy, but so we'll see. I think we've been working towards this for a while now. There's been kind of one student and a team of students, working on this for a while. We finally got all the permits and permissions and equipment. And so it'll be a really great, part of our teaching and learning experience, plus research projects, plus opportunities for the public to come and see. Also, the fish are just really cool. They're really fun to look at. All right, real quickly, I've got one other project that I want to talk to y'all about. This is, we put this kind of fancy name on it, SoCal Farm to Table Ambassadors. This is a project that we're doing with the USDA to try and cultivate future leaders in urban agriculture. We developed this before the pandemic, and the pandemic hit. We're like, oh man, what do we do now? We had all these plans. Many of y'all know that I work a lot with the farmers markets throughout Southern California. And the idea was to have students go out and, work with farmers markets, work with the ag commissioners, work with farmers, etc. And, the past year or so, up until recently, we haven't been able to send students anywhere. So we've been primarily doing projects online, doing farmers market data analysis and input, with the collaboration of community organizations that can really use this information. So it's been a positive experience, but we are looking forward to getting out and into the community again. So, we've been doing a lot of Zoom meetings and trying to make things work as everybody has, but hopefully soon we'll be getting out in person. Real quickly, I like to give you all a little update about how things are going at home with my kids. We've spent a lot of time expanding the garden, putting in new beds. That's my 6-year-old staking up some crops. One of the things we did this year was we planted corn on my birthday in March. The sweet corn was ready to harvest on my daughter's birthday in June. And then we also got some popcorn that was ready to harvest and pop around my wife's birthday in September. So this was just a big event in our household. My daughter was super excited, as you can see. We had these really pretty heirloom corn varieties. Also, the trees that we bought from your plant sale in 2020 were fruiting this year. So this is my daughter picking some pluots, I think. And then I put a picture here of, our little ice cream bean tree. We bought it, at the plant sale in 2019. And, it's hanging in there. It's a little spindly. I have to admit, I maybe didn't give it enough TLC, and I noticed there was some, grass encroachment. But if anyone has any advice on whether this is doing okay, or if I, have just totally not taking very good care of it, let me know. We don't have any great expectations for it, but my wife and I both did live in South America, so we're hoping, one day to get some fruit off of it. And so, as I kind of wrap up, I mostly talked about all the good things that are happening. Of course, there are some challenging things on campus. We're doing okay, but, the students, like, in some aspects are struggling, just trying to kind of figure out this sort of online and now kind of in-person thing. When students found out that, like, my lab was in person, like 20% of them dropped the class, at the beginning of the semester. And I think it's just, a lot of students have kind of, they're really busy. They've got jobs, they've got families, and kind of trying to figure out how to get back to campus is a challenge. We've still got students that are, getting sick. Fortunately, everything's been okay, more or less, but it's still been, a kind of a tenuous situation, and we're all kind of trying to still figure things out. In addition, we had some really awesome folks accept early retirement this year. So Dave Matias, our farm director, and Monica Salendier, who I'm sure many of you all know, both retired, accepted an early retirement program. And we're very happy for them, but also I will fully admit, when we found out they were going to do this, we were like in full panic mode. And, you know, we've adjusted, and staff and faculty, including myself, have stepped up to fill these roles. You know, I mean, of course, the way early retirement works, the reason why the administration, you know, encourages it is they want people to leave and then they don't rehire those positions, right? So we'll be out a farm director and a nursery manager for a while. But we're doing okay. You know, honestly, like, we've taken the opportunity to like reassess our operations and do some better planning and collaboration and record keeping. And, you know, a lot of students have stepped up. You know, Hugo is, you know, now an assistant manager at the farm, and, you know, is really invaluable resource there. So, you know, it's a time of change, and we're doing our best. And I think, you know, we're trying to steer the ship in the right direction. You know, we can't do everything. The grapes were kind of one example. You know, I reached out to some of y'all saying, like, we may have a lot of extra grapes in our vineyards, but it turns out that, like, I guess we just weren't on top of things, and like downy mildew and birds, they just, you know, almost wiped out our entire crop towards the end. So, you know, I think we still got enough to maybe make a little bit of wine. We collaborate with South Coast Vineyard down in Temecula, but you know, again, it was sort of not anyone's fault. Just like, we've all got a lot going on, and we weren't able to, you know, pay attention to everything. So.
They had a semi remote Zoom.
So I think with that, I'll wrap things up. Again, you know, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to speak with y'all, and I'm incredibly appreciative of the scholarships that y'all give our students every year. I know y'all work really hard to raise that money, and it really just warmed my heart when Sally talked about how this is the 21st year that y'all have been doing this. I feel so lucky to, you know, be a part of that in some small way. So thank you.